Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 90.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Marie Bigham. She is the Director of College Counseling at a private school in New Orleans, and she also is a board member for NACAC. And she has a lot of great information. We spend a lot of time talking about NACAC and all the great college fairs and other activities that they provide out there. So if you are interested in learning more about college, and I think all families should be, you really need to listen to this episode to understand how college fairs work. If you've never been to a college fair, you need to, again, listen and get them on your calendar, because I think college fairs are a great resource for many families, and thousands of families attend them every year, and try to make the most of them. Do the best you can in preparing ahead of time, understanding maybe what you're getting yourself into, and then go ahead and go. I encourage families to attend college fairs, learn about the colleges, learn about the prices. You know, there's financial aspects that you can learn at the college fairs, as well as finding a school that's a good fit for your student. As always, we have show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/90, which is where this particular episode is. It's number 90. So let's go ahead and jump in the interview. And after the interview is over, I'll talk about additional college fairs that you may be interested in. All right, today I'm sitting down with Marie Bigham. She is the Director of College Counseling at Newman, which is a school in New Orleans. And she's also a director on the board for NACAC. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much.
So, before we jump into all the great knowledge you have on college and NACAC, etc., tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do and why you do it.
I am Director of College Counseling at Isidore Newman School in New Orleans. For almost 20 years now, I've been involved in the college admissions profession, first working as an admissions officer at Washington University in St. Louis, which was my alma mater, and then as a college counselor at some of the really fantastic private schools around the country, including schools in New York, San Diego, Dallas, and now currently I'm at Isidore Newman in New Orleans. And I'm also very privileged to serve on the board of directors, like you mentioned, of NACAC, the National Association for College Admission Counseling, which has 16,000 members that cover all aspects of the admissions practices. And so it's a great pleasure to serve in that capacity too. And I do this because I believe strongly that the greatest pathway to social mobility and economic justice and equity in our country is through higher education. So I do this work because I think it makes all of us better, and it helps all of us grow higher ed. So that's why I do this. All
right. Well, great. So I guess I'd like to start because, I do talk to a number of counselors, but I don't talk to many people that are as deeply involved with NACAC as you are. So I'd love to chat with you a little bit about some of the things that NACAC has going on. A lot of people out there may or may not know, but NACAC is certainly one of the sponsors of the largest and probably the most well-attended college fairs. And you just mentioned there's a couple hundred across the country.
Yes.
There's one in my town here in Milwaukee, downtown, every year in the fall, and just every major metropolitan area probably has one.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Right.
Certainly.
Now, let's talk a little bit about these college fairs. If you were, assume we're a parent of a sophomore or junior and we're just getting started, so maybe we have never been to a college fair. Can you explain a little bit of what they are and what they look like when you get there?
Sure. So NACAC sponsors so many college fairs around the country. And this year we reached outside of the U.S. for the first time by sponsoring a fair in Vancouver, our second in Canada that we've hosted. So the goal with the college fairs is to be able to share as much one-on-one information with college-bound people about the opportunities in this country. So, for example, at the Dallas NACAC Fair, which I founded and chaired for 3 years, we had approximately 350 colleges from around the world. Approximately 3,000 people came through the doors. And not only could you learn about colleges by having face to face conversations, but we also offered informational sessions about paying for college, about the nitty gritty of applying, how to write an essay, what to do if you're a student athlete. We had sessions that were also in languages besides English to be able to reach out to as many people as we could, regardless of their language. We had counseling available by professional counselors from throughout the Dallas area to answer personal questions about the admissions process and about paying for college. I mean, we have scholarship sponsors there as well. So it can be a little big, it can be a little overwhelming to attend these college fairs, but I think it's really worth the time and effort for students starting as early as freshman year of high school.
Absolutely. You mentioned that there's many colleges. There are 300 typically, or somewhere in that neighborhood. What does that actually mean? I mean, when I guess my local fair, and I'm assuming most of them are kind of like a trade show. So a booth for every college, and you choose which colleges you want to go to their booth, and they've got their brochures and all that kind of stuff.
So step one, I think, for a family, when you know that there's a college fair within driving distance of you, in some areas that can be shorter, it depends on your ability to get to places. But for example, in Texas, where I hosted the fair, we had families drive 3 and 4 hours away because it's such a large spread out place. So pay attention to what's going on around you. Oftentimes, the regional newspaper or other media will have further information about the fairs, and the NACAC website will always have information about the college fairs as well. But families should start by going to the NACAC website to see when the fairs are happening in your area. Students can register there, put in their name and address, contact information, areas of study, and that will produce for them a barcode. The students can print the barcode. And usually on the website, you'll also find a list of the colleges attending the fair, as well as a map of the layout. So students should bring, to take a look at that map, should take a look at colleges that look interesting to them and highlight them so they're sure to stop at them. But I think it's important for students to also see places they've never heard of before, but we'll get there. So students and parents should go bring a bag to put materials in and bring that printed out barcode and walk through the fair, and you'll see, like you said, like a trade show. And imagine a big convention center with aisles of booths, and each table there's a college, and there's going to be a banner and a whole bunch of brochures and a friendly, helpful person or lots of people, depending, to answer questions. They'll often ask to scan your barcode, and then that way that adds you to the college's mailing list, and you don't have to write your name hundreds of times over and over again. But you can ask questions, get contact information, pick up brochures from colleges that you know you're interested in. But my challenge to families is for every college that you go see at the college fair that you know of already, go see 2 more you've never heard of. So that's my first hint. And then my second hint is if you go with your student, break up. So if it's student and a sibling and 1 parent, 3 people should go in 3 different directions so you could cover as much space as possible.
Right.
And then come back together and share information. But it can be a little big and a little overwhelming, and you want to wear comfortable shoes.
Right.
And you want to bring a bag to carry some items. But going in with a little bit of a game plan of knowing the layout of the space and being pre-registered can make your time at the college fair a lot more efficient.
Right. And then, as you mentioned, there's presentations available at many of these college fairs, and I think that's a underutilized resource here in Milwaukee.
Yep, I agree. At all of our fairs, we have informational sessions, and the local committee, the committees that plan it, not at the NACAC office, the local counselors and college representatives, they are the ones who come up with the sessions and with the speakers. So those are really planned with a local needs in mind, which I think can be quite helpful for families. But that's where you can go get really in-depth information about a process that can seem a little confusing at times. Those are free sessions, and they go throughout the college fair. So it's not like you have to choose of one over the other.
Right, exactly. So again, for parents that are kind of new to this, you could go spend an hour and a half kind of walking the aisles and chatting with people from all the various colleges. You could also go into some form of lecture room or lecture hall or someplace where there's a speaker and a screen, and they're going to give you maybe a 20-minute or maybe a half an hour or maybe even up to an hour presentation on college topics like how to pay for college, how to apply to college, how financial aid works, how to write an essay. I mean, there's all kinds of how to choose a career or a career path. I mean, there's all kinds of great information on top of just talking with the colleges.
And let's not assume, too, that those sessions are directed only towards students who are in high school in that 15 to 20-year-old age range. One of the most popular sessions that we've hosted at NACAC fairs recently have been for veterans who have returned and have left the service but want to use their GI Bill.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that is, returned veterans have this wonderful opportunity with the post 9/11 GI Bill that is unusually generous and is able to be passed along. So that session, we've worked hard to make sure that we're giving the best information, and that's been a really popular one.
Right. Okay. So let's circle back around. And I think you touched on something, and I just want to kind of focus in on it a little bit. Let's say you are that rural Texas where you're going to go to the Dallas Fair. It's going to be a 2.5-hour drive. So you're going to get up early. You're going to drive for 2.5, 3 hours. You're going to go to a restaurant, and then you're getting all ready to go to the fair at, and you get there at noon, let's say. You'll be at the fair till 3, and then you're going to spend all evening driving home and eating dinner. So it's going to be a full day event, essentially, to participate in this fair. So to make the most of a entire Sunday event, what kind of things might you do prior to going, and how soon would you prepare, and that kind of stuff?
Well, again, I think that's where the NACAC website can be very, very helpful for you, because not only can you see on the college fair page information about the fair, so you can pre-register, get your barcode, you can look at the map, you can look at the list of colleges, do a little bit of research beforehand, but also on the NACAC website, you'll find resources that are appropriate by grade level throughout high school. A couple of the resources include questions that you should be asking yourself during the college search. I believe there's even a list of questions that you can take to a college fair or with meeting with a rep individually. So check out those resources. And a good prep is to think about what you want in a college experience and then develop a list of questions that you can take to the colleges at the fair. And that way you can have a common data set of information. But really hone in your questions. So for example, when I worked in admissions, I would get really frustrated if a student would say to me, so do you have a good English department? Well, of course I'm going to say yes, but I want to know what the student really wants to know about the English department. Is it that you want a lot of opportunities for creative writing? Is that you have a particular interest in British literature? Something like that, and just drill down into the questions a little more. To really personalize them for your needs and develop that list of questions beforehand. You can even do that in the car during the drive.
Right.
If you are going to a college fair that's in a metropolitan area, if you have the time, I'd suggest maybe even putting a college visit on top of the fair. So for example, I'll use my Dallas fair again as an example. Our fair was in Irving, Texas, so right in between Dallas and Fort Worth. And our fair started at 4 in the evening and went, I believe, until 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. So if you left in the morning and came into town, you would have time to go visit TCU or SMU or UT Arlington, or UT Dallas or Austin College, or this huge range of colleges right there within a half an hour drive of that convention center. So that might, even if you're not interested in those specific colleges, that might be a good opportunity for you to just step foot on a college campus and take a tour for a test drive. See what that means so that you can start to build a vocabulary. So let's say, for example, you go visit University of Texas at Arlington. Now you can say you've seen a larger public school that draws a lot of students from a region but has a very strong academics. So there are things that you can pull from that. So I do think you have a long day. And I would suggest to parents too to really enjoy that time if you're driving or enjoying that meal afterwards with your child, to listen to them talk and process this. At the end of the college process, when I talk with parents about what they enjoyed the most about doing this with their child, often they said it was that time on college visits or driving to a college fair, that just casual, informal time together chatting. that they didn't get that often in their teen years. So I think there are a lot of things you can do with making that whole day, but preparing beforehand, taking advantage of any colleges that are nearby if you could do a tour, and just enjoying chatting with your child.
Okay. Well, great. So, what grade levels do you think are appropriate to be going to the fair? And would you do things differently if you had a senior compared to a freshman?
Oh, for sure. I think freshman year is a completely appropriate time to start going to college fairs and researching colleges. I think before that, it's amorphous. It's a little too distant for students. So, what do you do with freshmen? I think with someone in ninth grade, having them just walk around and look at the plethora of opportunities out there. Have them see that you can go to college in Milwaukee or Scotland, or that you can do college that's focused on art or music or on math and science. That there's a huge range of places. So I think for a ninth grader, have them walk around and just see what's out there and pick up brochures that just look attractive. And if there are sessions about how students can prepare for the college process throughout high school, that might be a good session. Parents, I think, should go to a session about financial aid and paying for college at that age too. It's not too late at that point, so that might be a good session for them. For 10th graders, I think then they want to start being more cognizant of their skills and their talents and their hopes and their ambitions, and start perhaps thinking more about their specific needs that they're discovering in high school, how that might apply in college. And they should walk around with a little more focused eye that way. And perhaps check out sessions about testing or test prep. For 11th graders, they're going to a college fair, I think, with a different purpose. I think at that point, they're starting to develop a college list and really honing in on the specific places they want. And they should see those, but also be open-minded to others they might not be aware of yet. And for 12th graders, I think they're going to college fairs at that time to introduce themselves to the representatives, to say, hello, I'm an applicant this year. They might want to ask specific questions about the college or about that college's process. But I think college fairs, when you're in 12th grade, that's the opportunity to build the relationship with the person standing behind that table.
Right. So, I guess let's explain, who is that person standing behind the table?
For the most part, at NACAC fairs, it's going to be the admissions representatives. Rarely, and we really do hope rarely, sometimes alumni who we hope are well trained will go to those college fairs. But for the most part, you're going to have the admissions representatives. So for selective colleges, they're the folks who not only go out on the road to meet students and to answer questions and talk about their college, but they're the people who will also read your application and take your application through the admissions process on the college side. And they'll be the ones who work with you.
Right. So, in other words, these are the people that are potentially some decision makers, or certainly have influence on the decision.
Absolutely.
So, it's best to put your best foot forward and go ahead and meet these people so they know who you are.
But at the same time, I tend to not frame it that way, because I don't want students to feel intimidated or scared that, oh gosh, I have to go to this thing dressed up and I need to, be ready for an interview. That's not at all what's happening.
Right.
These are big crowded events. It's okay to go dressed comfortably like a teenager, like I said, comfy shoes. But what you want to do is have a handshake, say hello, introduce yourself. Even if you're giving them a bar scan, code to scan, you still want to say hi. Introduce yourself, like I said, talk about what you're interested in, have a good question or two ready to go.
Right.
That shows your level of interest.
Exactly. And it's also your opportunity to get some of your tougher questions answered, or find out how to get your tougher questions. They may not be able to answer them there, but they'll say, well, okay, send me an email, or send an email here, or call this place, or do this or do that. And then that person can answer your question, since I can't.
Exactly. And, I would ask students and parents to be cognizant, be aware of how many people are standing behind you when you approach a college fair table with a detailed question. I would see it at our fair every year with University of Texas, would have a line of students waiting for questions to say hello, that would go almost the whole aisle all the way down. And I would get nervous when I would hear a student say, essentially, could you explain year by year the entirety of your engineering curriculum?
Right.
because the representatives really want to be helpful and they want to answer questions and they want to do that. But when there are so many people standing behind you, just be aware. Maybe
Right.
in one of those moments, grab a business card, ask if you can send an email with a question, grab a brochure, just say hi. And I know people are polite and not pushy. Just that's always strikes me when I see that at college fairs. Students have so many great questions, but lots of students have questions.
Right. And
Yeah.
then I guess the last thing on these fairs is, at least I know in my neck of the woods, it's your opportunity to see colleges that are probably far and wide. I mean, we have other
Absolutely.
smaller fairs, at local high schools and that type of thing that bring in the Wisconsin schools, the very local state
Yep.
schools and the local private schools. But if you wanted to see Georgia schools and Texas schools here in Wisconsin, the NACAC fair is the big one, and that's the one where they're going to be.
Absolutely. That's so true. I was so pleased and impressed by how many colleges outside of the US have been coming to these fairs. In Dallas, to watch the number grow from a handful in the first year to a large section 5 years later, that's been really impressive. But I agree with you completely. Those college fairs, those are those moments where you can learn about colleges far away or explore something that you hadn't really considered before. In a safe, easy way, you can learn about a lot in a short amount of time, that will help you then focus your time and your resources when appropriate.
Right. So, what's the next step as far as how do we find a date? Obviously, we can go to your website,
Mhm.
but I guess in Milwaukee, as an example, we have typically a early fall, so like a
Mhm.
September 29th or October 1st, something like that. It would be
Yes.
typical. Do most places kind of do the same thing year over year?
Most regions, if they are NACAC fairs, there'll be consistency in terms of time of year and location year after year. It's just easier, honestly, as we plan. But that can change, and we shift along with demographics and we shift with needs of areas. Um, and so I think the best place to check if you're a high school student, go to your guidance office, go to your college counselor, and ask them about any college fairs that are coming. They typically will have the most up to date information from NACAC. About any of our college fairs, our new STEM fairs, our visual and performing art fairs. So your guidance office would have those from about NACAC, but as well as any other regional fairs that might be occurring or that school might sponsor.
Right.
The NACAC website is always a great place to find that information that's always up to date.
Absolutely.
But it depends on the region. Sometimes it's better in some areas in the spring. Sometimes it's better in some areas in the fall. And um, we pay very careful attention to our counselors and to our college representatives on the local planning teams to make sure they fit best in that region's time.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So everything we've been talking about is the general college fair, but you just mentioned you have two other types of fairs, STEM and performing and visual arts. So can you explain what
Yes.
those are?
I'll start with visual and performing arts because we've had those for longer. The visual and performing arts fairs, I want to say we have about 25 of them, but again, please check the NACAC website. Those are fantastic opportunities for students who have want to explore a specialized professional track in visual or performing arts. Those fairs will have a range of places from conservatory quality places like the Oberlin Conservatory or Juilliard, um, California School of Arts, places like that, to colleges that are broad research universities that also happen to have opportunities in visual and performing arts. So those fairs are like a traditional college fair in that there will be tables of people representing a range of institutions and opportunities. They'll also have information sessions about putting together a portfolio and why you should study the arts, the audition process, things like that. And some of them will also have portfolio reviews at their table. So for example, at Washington University, a portfolio was not required to apply to our art school, but it was recommended. But those are big and heavy to carry on a plane or expensive to produce at the time. And so students could take their original works to the fair, and a representative from our art school, usually a faculty member, would give a student feedback on the spot. So those are great opportunities in a smaller venue, usually at a college, to learn from the professors and the people in the arts programs specifically, and to get to get specialized information. Those have been going on a while, and those are, I think, wonderful opportunities for students and parents
Right. And
who are interested in that.
just that's kind of an aside,
Hmm.
so parents are aware, in the performing arts and visual arts and, I guess artistic things like painting and sculpting and a lot of these quote unquote talent based career
Yes.
paths, the process is substantially different. So if as a parent you're an accountant and your wife's a nurse and you have an artistic child that's going to be going down that path, their path to college is going to have a number of different stops on it that you may not be even aware of at this point, as far as, again, creating
Absolutely.
portfolios, participating in auditions, all kinds of different things that
Hmm.
make it substantially different. So you're going to need to learn how
Right.
that process works.
You're right. It's a different timeline in some universities. I would suggest, your earlier question about appropriate age for the college fairs. If your child or if you have any interest at all in maybe pursuing visual or performing arts in college, I'd suggest going to those fairs early. I would go definitely freshman year and sophomore year, if only to help you plan out that audition process or portfolio process, anything like that, because you're right, those are extensive and have a different timeline. So
Right.
those are very helpful for younger as well.
Right. And then you guys are just now launching STEM college fairs. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, absolutely. And this is exciting. We have heard this from colleges and we've heard this from parents and students that they want to learn more about how colleges approach studying STEM, science, technology, engineering. And I used to say medicine, but apparently that's not what the M stands for.
Math?
Yes, thank you. So students who are specifically interested, excuse me, in those areas. And so this year we have 3 test cases, New York, San Francisco, and Houston. And these are a different model for us because not only are we going to have the traditional colleges there with tables to talk about these areas, but we're partnering, the goal is to partner with businesses in those cities as well, who can talk to the students about career paths, what they see as future opportunities, how this education gets them there. So we see it as a longer line, really, than just high school to college. But we see these STEM opportunities as educating from earlier in the high school years to all the way to that first step into career. And we're
Okay.
really excited about these. We have 3 of them this year, which is small for us. But the goal is to test drive them in places where we know there's a lot of support and make sure we get it right before we take it to a broader audience.
Okay. So then this might be appropriate not only for the high school kid looking to get into STEM, but also maybe college students that are already studying STEM.
That's what, it sounds like for those, that there could be real opportunities for students who are in college to check that out. But again, we're still working on that programming, so I couldn't tell you specifics about that.
Right.
But I would certainly think that with industry involved in talking about the opportunities in the future, I could see that, especially as we know that many of our students who are currently in college will eventually go to graduate school as well. We know their education doesn't stop at the undergrad years.
Right. Okay. And I guess another quick question I just realized is what is the cost for any and all of these fairs?
0 to the family and student. These are absolutely free of charge.
Right. Exactly. So you may have to pay for parking at the venue, but other than that, there is no cost.
And we try to put them in places where mass transit's available. So if paying for parking is an issue, we're going to do what we can to make sure you still get opportunities for that information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, beyond just the college fairs, you sent me a long list of materials that NACAC has on their website about planning for college. And we're going to put that list in the show notes. So all the details will be at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. But can you tell us a little bit more about what some of these brochures and information are about?
Sure. So you'll find on the NACAC website, which is NACAC, NACACnet.org, what you'll see under the tab that says Parents and Students will be information broken down by age as well as broken down by topic. So you'll see resources that are appropriate for freshmen versus seniors, resources for students who want to transfer either from a 4-year to a 4-year, or a 2 to 4, or a 4 to 2. We have information for students with an undocumented citizenship status. We have information about financial aid. We have information for students who were born abroad but would like to attend college in the US. So there's a broad range of resources available for students and parents. One of my favorite resources is how to utilize college rankings. One of my big frustrations when I work with families and students is this: we've all bought into rankings as something of importance, and it's, as a professional, I just don't find them useful at all. But this particular resource will help students and families look at rankings, find what is useful information for them, and point them into different areas where they can research what they're seeking when they look at rankings. So there's a lot of good information on the website that is practical and philosophical, I think, that's appropriate for students and parents approaching college admissions.
All right. Well, again, all this stuff is a lot of great information as far as NACAC, but now I guess I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about what you're doing with students. And obviously you spend a lot of time across the table with parents, and I'm assuming parents of juniors and seniors talking college.
Oh, sure. You're younger. Whenever they want to talk, we're there.
All right. So when you talk about the process with parents, what do you think some of the big mistakes parents make? Or, again, if you're talking to the parent of a sophomore or junior, what would you tell them? Well, these are some of the things you need to start thinking about or focusing on, quote unquote, before it's too late or before you run out of time. What would those ideas be?
Well, this one I think is something that you address all the time, and that's, I think, families put off the discussion about money until far too late.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is just our culture in general. Parents don't talk with students about money, and it's distasteful in a lot of ways. It's just something that, as a culture, we struggle talking about money. But I think talking about money with regards to college is really difficult for parents because of the aspirational aspect of college.
Right.
And parents don't want to say, hey, there's a limit. I think often what parents want to say is, you can have anything that you have earned and we want to supply that. Unfortunately, college is so expensive now that I think for all but a very limited few, students and parents need to be aware of the cost, and parents need to be honest and upfront with their student about what they're able to pay for and what they expect of their student. So I think that's in terms of just the process in general, I think everyone drops the ball with that.
Right. And I think another good analogy is looking at it from the other side as far as what the students expect.
Yes.
Because a typical student, essentially, and if you look at kind of the way they, stuff shows up in their life, so to speak, if they whine and complain long enough, the iPhone turns up for Christmas. Right. Or the Xbox and as parents, we just get tired of it. And it's like, well, if for $300 or $400 or $700 or whatever it is, this will go away. When we say, okay, well, I guess that's fine. So now occasionally what I see is students just thinking that, well, if I just ask and act like I really want it, college is going to show up for Christmas, just like the iPhone did.
Right.
And they have no concept of $500 is a lot different than $50,000 or $100,000.
I have to tell my favorite moment, and it happens every single year like clockwork. My favorite moment is when a student who has just worked for her first 3 or 4 months ever in a job comes into my office and says, "Oh my gosh, Ms. Bigham, do you have any idea how many hours I have to work to buy a pair of jeans?" And I always look at the student with the exact same reaction. Well, where are you buying your jeans? Are you getting them used at Buffalo Exchange? Are you going to Old Navy? Are you going to Neiman Marcus? Like, where are you going for those jeans? And they look at me and they're indignant. Oh my gosh, it costs so much. And suddenly their perspective changes a lot. Right? But it's easy, I think, when you're 17 to wrap your arms around, I have to work 3 days to buy this $150 pair of jeans versus $75,000 a year.
Right.
That's incomprehensible, I think, for most. So I think that's the biggest mistake that parents and families make in this process in general, is just not being open and honest and realistic about cost. And responsibility. For students, this is a double-edged sword for me. On one hand, I want students to know when they enter high school that everything they do in high school matters in the admissions process. It's always surprising to me when I meet with a student the first time, junior year, and she says, I just didn't know freshman year that my grades mattered. So they're
Hmm.
not really great, but I'm so much of a better student now. And they're really frustrated with themselves. On one hand, I want students to know that what they do throughout high school matters in the admissions process. On the other hand, I don't want students to treat or parents to treat high school like it's just an admissions process being launched.
Right.
I want students and parents to appreciate and enjoy high school for what it is as a singular experience, as opposed to just a waiting room for college admissions.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so I want them to be aware. I want students to be aware it all matters, but I don't want them to be. I don't want that to drive how they live their high school life.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. As including the extracurriculars, et cetera, et cetera. There's,
Mm.
some people are essentially entirely working on their resume
Right.
all through high school and
Right.
not doing what they want. And I think if you work at it strategically, you can both build your resume and do what you love and want to be
Right.
doing anyway.
It's authenticity is so. I think it's just so important in terms of raising a healthy child, right? Just allowing them to be their authentic self. And unfortunately, especially in communities that have high expectations about college admissions and in families that have high expectations with that, unfortunately, I think that authenticity gets wiped out. And instead it's, well, just tell me what I need to do to get this, to reach that brass ring. And I can tell you from being an admissions person, the authenticity is better,
Right.
but it's hard to say that. People want a formula.
Yes, that's exactly it. The
Yeah.
authenticity is better, but it's different for everybody. So there is no cheat
Exactly.
sheet to explain how authenticity is going to work.
And what a difficult thing to ask a teenager. I mean, honestly, we don't ask adults for that in their lives all the time, but we expect 17-year-olds to do this in admissions. It's almost a little unfair.
Yes. All right. Well, we've got a lot of great information. I really appreciate all the information. Any other words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
For parents, I would say enjoy this moment with your students as they approach college admissions and thinking about themselves. I think the admissions process and search done well, when it's done right, students learn so much about themselves, and it's a tremendous personal development opportunity for students to really think about their skills, their talents, their ambitions, their goals, their future, and to have that agency to express themselves that way. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. So, parents, I encourage you to let your students explore their options far and wide.
All right. Well, great, Marie. That was a great bit of information. We will stay in touch, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, that was a great interview with Marie. She is a wealth of knowledge, and based on how well this interview went, we're going to probably try and have her back because she's got a lot of great information for parents and students that are working on the college process. Obviously, because she is involved with NACAC, we focused on NACAC as far as college fairs. But I know many municipalities, many metro areas, and many states have additional college fairs beyond the NACAC college fairs. Now, a lot of times the NACAC fair is the biggest, quote, or best, or whatever you might say, available in your area. So again, as an example, here in Wisconsin, they do the one big show every year here in Milwaukee, but there's many college fairs available in Wisconsin besides just the NACAC fair. And the local Wisconsin colleges have band together to create what's called the WEF fairs. So the additional fairs. Now, at a typical WEF fair, there's 20, 30, 40 colleges attending, maybe up to 50, certainly not the hundreds that come to the NACAC. And again, the local fairs tend to have local schools, whereas the NACAC fair is the one in our area that would draw in schools from many states and even outside the U.S. to that fair. And then for an even bigger fair for our neck of the woods, we would potentially go to Chicago, where their fair is even larger and attracts even more schools that may not be available in the Milwaukee fair. again, you should talk with your local experts, your school counselors, etc., and ask them what fairs come to town each year or what fairs are in the area. And then, of course, for some of you, you're going to have to drive into your nearest metro area. I mean, most of Wisconsin is going to have to drive, again, as an example, to either Milwaukee or Chicago or Minneapolis or some nearby metro area, depending on where you're living, in order to get to the largest fairs. And then there may be some local fairs at local universities and other places that would be a little more convenient. But again, looking up the list of schools that might be at each type of fair is some of the homework that you can do ahead of time. So what I encourage families to do is to right now make a little note that you need to get information on all the local college fairs and get them on a calendar. So as an example, you might discover that the large fair in your area is every spring in, say March, or like our area, it's every fall. And once you know that, you put that on the calendar and put reminders as well to look them up, right? So if you know your college fair is going to be in March, because it is that way every year, then maybe in February, put a reminder that you need to figure out exactly when the college fair is and get it on the calendar and start doing your prep work so that you don't miss the college fair. I think a challenge in our neck of the woods is it happens in September and a lot of kids are just getting back to school and, summer is over, but just barely. So a lot of people are surprised by how quickly the college fair comes up in the fall. And again, they don't have a lot of time to prep for it, and they didn't realize it was coming because by the time they're back to school and they hear about it from their school counselors, a lot of times it's only a week ahead that they're getting notice, and hopefully that Sunday is still available. Whereas if you look ahead of time, you can put it on your calendar, know that it's coming. You can go to the NACAC website and look up, again, if there might be many opportunities within driving distance of where you are. You may have to decide what direction to go. We can go east to a big city or we can go west to the big city. We just have to figure out which one is better for us or whatever it might be. So look up where the fairs are going to be, the NACAC fairs, and also figure out who else is sponsoring fairs and get them on your calendar and plan to take advantage of them. All right, that's all we have for today. Again, as a reminder, there is lots of links and information about the NACAC as well as other information, not just the fairs, but the other NACAC materials, all available at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/90. That's all we have this week. We will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.